I realized that the capstone class in any business school, any university for innovation entrepreneurship was how to write a business plan. Now, 5 years after we've been talking about lean, or maybe 10 years even, it's still how to write a business plan. I mean, there are lots of, variants on it, but it's how to write a pitch or how to do X and Y. And my whole philosophy was innovation entrepreneurship is experiential. It's about getting out of the building. It's about chaos and uncertainty and figuring out product market fit. And we're teaching you how to make some slides and a 5-year plan. What's wrong with this? Why are we behind? And so I decided that we needed to kind of reset all our assumptions. And that if I wanted to do a class, I wanted to do one that closely emulated what a startup in the 21st century was really like. Number one is it was team-based. Number two was going to be based on getting out of the building, testing hypotheses that you had on day one. Number three is it was going to require you to build minimum viable products. That is, iterative and incremental prototypes that were derived from what you learned week to week. And that was just non-traditional. And so I pitched that to Tom Byers, and God bless him and Tina Seelig and Kathy Eisenhardt at Stanford. I mean, why on earth would they let me do that? I still, to this day, have no idea, given my lack of credentials. They went, sure, okay. And so I did. I created a class which was called the Lean Launchpad. And because it was so radical, and by radical I don't mean it wasn't clear it was genius or anything, it was just different. It was nothing like this existed. I decided, by then I had a blog, about a year old. I decided to blog every week of the class. Here's what I wanted to accomplish. Here are my slides. Here's what the students presented. Here's what I learned. Here's what worked, here's what didn't. And even my friends said, Steve, no one's going to read this. This is the most boring thing ever. You write about entrepreneurship. Now you're writing about education. What the hell do you know? And they were kind of right. And much like everything else in my life, I ignored them. Because what I never would have expected, remember I said earlier, part of my philosophy was stick out your thumb and see where life takes you? I never would have been able to compute or pre-compute that back in Washington, D.C., the head of commercialization of the National Science Foundation, Errol Arkolek, was reading my blogs, as he said, like they were a serialized novel. And the day the class ends and the blog is over, I get a phone call, and I still remember I was driving on the Stanford campus. Hi, you don't know me. I'm from the U.S. government. We need your help. And Errol and I still laugh about my response, which was this was just in the middle of what was called the surge in Iraq. And I was thinking maybe somebody was calling me from my government help. And I blurted out, I already gave the government my help during Vietnam. I'm not giving any more. Little did I know about later in my career, but Errol and I still laugh. He said, no. I'm from the National Science Foundation. And he said, I should have hung up when you said the next thing, which I said, what's the National Science Foundation? Of course now it is basically one of the key national research funding agencies in the United States. NIH, $35 billion a year. NSF, about $8 billion, funds all basic science research, and except for life sciences and universities. And the NSF had this problem is the U.S. government had started something called the SBIR program, which was a way to fund anybody who wanted to commercialize science. Been going on for 30 years, and it was not producing results commensurate with its money, which means if Congress had ever asked how well they're doing, they'd all be in jail. And Errol realized they needed something different, and so did the leadership of the NSF. Long story short, as Errol tells the story, and he's written up something that the museum should probably have, which is a great history of the program, he adopted my class and said, help us turn it into a national program. And so the NSF adopted the Stanford Lean Launchpad class and now called it I-Core for the Innovation Core.